Hello, welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. In my room with Makina. You really gobbled that down. Did you even chew before you swallowed? Let's see how much further this relationship with Makina will go.
Yuujiが完食させるからだよ。
Yeah, my bad.
まあいいわよ。マキナ、あんたはお風呂入ってきなさい。うんしゃ、パパ一緒に入ろう。頭洗って。あんた、女湯にユージを連れ込む気？食器片付けるの終わったら後で私が洗ってあげるから、あんたは先に行ってなさい。アヒル以外のおもちゃ持ち込んじゃダメよ。まったくこんなに残してもったいない。
With a single remorseful sigh, Amane begins to tidy up the tableware in a vaguely motherly manner. Every few seconds, she absent-mindedly grabs a little of Makina's leftover food and tosses it in her mouth. Now I get it. That oversized body of yours, Makina's leftovers are clearly to blame. Completely unconscious. Oh, no wonder you ended up that way. Nothing to be ashamed of, but given that, you sure let Makina off the hook awfully easily today. Normally, Amane forced the girl to finish her food, even if it meant enduring hours of begging and whining. For some reason, every last one of you people seems to have gone soft on Makina today. Did something happen while we weren't around?
Makina がそういう関係になったってことで、今日の放課後に賛成か否かってみんなで話し合ったのよ。
So that's why you all vanished so abruptly.
まあね。で、話し合いの結果はおおむね賛成ってことで、みんなで生ぬるく見守ることが決まったのよ。
That more or less part bothers me a little, but everyone approved?
こういうことに慣れてない子たちばっかりだからね。どう対処していいのかわからないってのが正直なところなんじゃないかな。とりあえず邪魔してやろうって考えているような子はいないよ。
No kidding? That's something to be grateful for.
ユージはさ、マキナのために頑張るって決めたんでしょ。だったら誰も邪魔なんかしないよ。
I see.
男が一旦こうと決めたなら簡単に投げ出すんじゃないぞ。わかった？
I'll bear that in mind. With that, the conversation ceases, and I simply watch Amane from behind as she quietly cleans the dishes. From far away, there's the piercing sound of a siren. Instantly, beads of cold sweat form on my brow. With an odd sense of detachment, I find myself reflecting on my newfound devotion to something other than the national interest. A dog raised for his country trying to accomplish something of its own free will. Hard to imagine that can amount to anything much. But I suppose it has to be more meaningful than getting some cheap metal pinned on your collar. For some reason, the burning wave of nausea seems to recede a little more easily than usual. In all things, the fundamentals are what matter most, followed closely by experience, or so my master used to tell me. When it really hits the fan, and you're lying face down in the mud about ready to just give up, your fundamental physical strength and the mental toughness you've gained on the battlefield are what allow you to pull yourself up again and keep struggling forward. I guess her way of thinking must have rubbed off on me at some point. At the time, I absolutely hated that brutal exercise routine she imposed on me, but now I feel downright uneasy if I miss even a single day. Hearing a vaguely dopey cry of distress from behind, I slowed to a halt and looked back down the road. Sassy's jogging sluggishly toward me with one arm around Makina's shoulder, practically dragging the girl along. In between gasps of breath, the maid morosely mumbles, "Although we're 3 laps behind." Meanwhile, Makina collapses to her hands and knees, whimpering pitifully. Clutching her twitching stomach and moaning like an out-of-tune trombone, Makina stares up at me with eyes full of bitter reproach. But she's the one who declared a war on blubber and demanded to tag along with my running from now on. Don't see how she has anyone but herself to blame. Was it? As someone who runs a full 16 kilometers every single morning, 5 seemed like a pretty generous concession on my part. Heck, the routine was even tougher back at my old school. We'd all get drummed out of bed at 6 in the morning and gather in front of the dorm for roll call. Followed by a sprint to the warehouse to receive a 3.5 kilogram weight, which we would proceed to lug around for the duration of a mandatory 16-kilometer run. And when, eager to ditch our aggravating burdens, we finally caught sight of the exercise ground designated as our goal, the relief would often only last for a moment. When the squad leader was in a bad mood, he'd instantly bellow out, "Right face!" to send us running back to the dorm, still carrying the darn weights. More often than not, there'd be another right face waiting for us when we got there. On top of all that, every time he randomly blew his shrill little whistle, we were expected to break into an all-out sprint, so it was near impossible to pace ourselves. Sounds rough. On the other hand, I guess that's not really a reasonable standard of comparison. It's nothing. You're right. Let's focus on getting you to be able to run a single decent lap around the school. It's only 3.2 kilometers or so.
ですね。まずはそれぐらいを目指しましょう。あまねみたいなパーフェクトボディを目指して頑張るのよさ。
Well, I'd have a hard time calling Amane perfect in terms of body fat percentage, but whatever. For starters, how about wearing some vaguely appropriate clothing? You could have at least thrown on sneakers and a sweatshirt or something.
だってパパは軽く走るって言ったのよさ。
Even so, casual clothes and boots aren't exercise gear, on top of which you haven't shined those boots lately, have you? I should be able to see my face in those things. If this was my old school, you'd be doing 200 push-ups right about now.
ああ、それはボロい方がかっこいいってあまねさんが言ってましたので、わざと磨いていないんですよ。
Not that you're any better. Still in a maid uniform as always.
はい、これは運動用のメイド服です。速乾性に優れた特許技術、ウルトラドライマックス素材でできていて、気化熱の作用によって体温の上昇を素早く緩和してくれるのです。コンセプトは、
Okay.
裸より涼しいだそうです。
Tell me something, Sachi. Just how many different maid uniforms do you own?
そうですね。通常は
Intermediate.
薬草のトロピカル、冬季寒冷地仕様のヘビーゾーンに、ボート鎮圧用のアサルト、医療従事用の白いメイド服のメディック、冠婚葬祭および慰霊式典参加用のコンサバティブの計7種類があります。
So many uniforms. Wait, what was that? Counterinsurgency?
はい、何でも強化アラミド繊維で縫製されているそうで、試したことはありませんが、9ミリ程度の銃弾なら苦もなく受け止める上に、かねてより弱点として指摘されていた鋭利な刃物による一つにも対応した新素材を採用したそうですよ。
What kind of a battle maid would need a uniform like that? I mean, where did you even buy that thing?
それは私が特注で作らせたのよさ。
Why?
いえ、最初はネット通販でメイド服を買おうとしてたんですけれど、1万円で売られているものもあれば18万円もするものもあって、お値段がピンキリで。でね、どれ買えばいいかわかんねえっつうから、迷った時はいっちゃいいの買っときゃいいんじゃねってことでね。最初はユミちゃんちの出入り業者に頼んだんだけど、そのなんつうの、榊さんの家の家政婦さんはメイド服ではなくて喫茶店のウェイトレスさんの服のようなものを採用されていまして、業者の方もメイド服は作ったことがないとおっしゃられまして、で仕方ないから私の家の知り合いのアパレル業者にオーダーで一式作ってもらったのよさ。ところがその発注した業者というのがフライトジャケットや腕時計なんかを作って軍に納入している業者でして、
So all of a sudden you end up with a bunch of mil-spec made uniforms, huh?
そういうことなのよさ。アサルト装備にはバイオテロにも対応可能なガスマスクもセットになってて、とってもお得なのよ。
Yay. When is she going to use that exactly?
コンタミネーションレベル8以上の大気汚染度の高いおトイレなどを掃除するときに大活躍します。
A gas mask, yeah. I remember getting drilled on putting those things on quickly back at my old school. Guess it was back in middle school when they started that. I remember clumsily pulling an M40 over my face, then being forced to run a marathon with it on. Jeez, pretty rough, even by their standards. Even after returning to Japan, I trained numerous times with a Model 4 protective mask. Usually this involved rushing into a tent full of insecticide fumes. The instructor would bellow, "Situation, gas," as we fumbled to get the masks out of our waist pouches and onto our faces in 8 seconds or less. Not the most exciting training, but simple skills like that can easily make the difference between life and death in the field. After ejecting the gas inside the mask and confirming an airtight seal, we pair off with our buddy and make sure theirs was really on properly. At this point, it's kind of a fond memory. What do you want to know?
風見さんが以前在籍していらした学校とは一体どのような学校なのでしょうか。あ、それは私も前々から気になってたのよさ。
What kind of a place? Kind of a tricky question, but let's see. I put a hand on my chin and considered the matter, turning my eyes away from Sachi's curious gaze. I was what they call a self-supporting student. I was already working at a middle school age, but since I was still in the compulsory education period, my employer was kind enough to send me to school at night. That employer I mentioned was an international enterprise with its headquarters in the States, so naturally the school they paid for me to attend was American as well. I spent the first half of junior high in San Diego, California. Then for the latter half I was moved to Quantico, Virginia. When they finally decided to ship me back to the Japanese branch, I ended up getting transferred to yet another school over here. Whoa. Heck of a transition, actually. Nothing at all like how things were in America. Less of a pain in that people weren't inviting me to barbecues every weekend, but you could really see the difference in how seriously the students approached it. You've had a crazy upbringing, Yuuji. Not easy to explain, but maybe this will give you the general idea. In America, the whole point was training us to be useful in the field, where Japan was all about training us to pass the tests. Basically, in Japan, the inspections were the only thing anybody cared about. There's something like a test. If it wasn't on the test, they really didn't care. They'd give us a little hands-on experience, but rarely bothered to explain what we were supposed to be learning. At worst, they taught us outright nonsense. About the only things America and Japan had in common were the crew cuts and the horrible food.
それは何と言いますか、お勤めご苦労様です。
Well, it's not like I was actually in the service or anything.
でも普通の学校じゃないよね。
I've been feeling a little unsure about our point of reference in that area for a while now. Mind if I ask you two something as well?
どうぞ。
Is this Mihama Academy of ours a normal school?
なんて答えにくいことを聞くんだよ、パパ。
Well, if the question seems awkward, I guess the answer's clear enough.
こういった表現が正しいのかどうかは分かりませんが、私たちが普通に通えている時点でもう普通からは大きく逸脱しているような気もします。そもそも普通の子は入学してこないのよさ。
So you're actually aware you're not normal, huh?
そりゃそうよ。それに私が普通の子じゃないからパパはパパになってくれたんでしょ。
Guess you might be right about that. It's largely because of Makina's overwhelming, "This kid's hopeless," aura that I developed my initial interest in her. The more we talked, the more I realized just how badly she needed someone to set her straight. And in time, her sheer cheerful obliviousness inspired an uneasy variety of protective feelings. What's this girl going to do without me around? Didn't exactly have myself down as the nurturing type. But maybe the way I've had defending the nation beaten into my bones is part of the reason I felt the need to protect this carefree, airheaded creature. But that doesn't mean you can just sit back and rely on me. True safety is only possible through accurate situational awareness, moderate caution, and readiness to defend yourself when push comes to shove. Sure, plenty of people sit back and take the protection of others for granted. Easy enough to become a spectator to your own life, throwing tomatoes and booing when things go wrong. But we're going to take a different approach. While protecting you, I'll shape you into a woman with the skill and confidence to solve even the most difficult problems on your own. No whining. If you want to call yourself my daughter, then you're going to become the best of the best. Bear in mind that your failure is my shame. Do I make myself clear? If you understand, then respond. Alright then, let's start with 30 sit-ups. Yeah. Ranger Komini, you're Ranger Arisu's buddy. Assist her. After spreading out a mat on the ground, Makina plunks herself down on her back and bends her knees. Sachi quickly kneels down to hold her ankles steady. Her eyes burning with determination, the girl links her hands behind her head and attempts her first sit-up, but... Despite several seconds of intense effort, she only succeeds in wriggling around on the ground impotently. Eventually, the girl releases her head and reaches both trembling arms straight out towards Sachi, but this too proves ineffective at getting her upper body off the ground. What's all this then? Were my instructions unclear? I didn't tell you to practice your telekinesis, did I? Let's see a darn sit-up already. Show me what you've got. Oh no.
1ミリも動いてませんね。それに今ブゴって言いました。
Oh, don't really care about that, but Makina, you can't even manage a single sit-up. Yes, I shouldn't be surprised, but seriously. Oh, you're being too hard on her. That really how it is?
自分はできると思いますよ。
In that case, let's have you show us how it's done. Makina, switch places with Sachi. After a little more squirming around, Makina pushes herself up off the ground and switches places with Sachi.
何回ぐらいやればよろしいでありますか？
How about 30 for starters? Shout "oh" from the pit of your stomach on the way up helps focus your body on working the abdominal muscles.
わかりました。では始めるであります。レンジャー、レンジャー、レンジャー。
Oh. Sachi repeats her sit-ups with the remarkably regular rhythm of a wind-up toy. It'd be insulting to even compare this effort to Makina's, but even by more general standards, it's quite the respectable pace for a young woman. Keep this up for about 300 reps, and she'd be right up there with your average WAC girl. But my admiration proves short-lived. After passing 20, Sachi's pace begins to slow precipitously. What's wrong? Run out of momentum already? Some maid you are. Is that all your devotion to your master amounts to? Don't disillusion me. Sow some guts, darn it. Guts! As my abuse rains down from above, Sachi bites her lower lip fiercely.
Sucked up! Beast up!
You're a Jap yourself, you know. Okay, that does it. Go have Amane give you a nice hard punch on the double. Is this girl under the impression that the term means something along the lines of sexy and cool? It's a female dog.
30回終わりました。レンジャー。
Alright, not exactly earning your salary, but a respectable effort. At the very least, it's 30 better than a certain doughy little pastry face managed. Why are you laughing? You do understand I'm talking about you, right? I knew that most of our students were indoor types, but to be honest, I hadn't imagined things would be quite this awful. Not that I'm planning to start running my mouth about how soft kids are these days, especially considering I'm still in that category myself, but...
Makiちゃんの場合、入院生活が長かったこともありますし、まずは人並みの体力を取り戻すところから始めるのがよろしいかと。
You have a point. In that case, I guess strengthening the cardiovascular system comes first. I think they're probably just trying to find a nice way to say completely brazen, but whatever. Well, anyway, let's go with some light cardio. No reason to stress those flimsy little joints, so I'm thinking biking would be the best choice. Of course, I don't plan to have the girl push herself up between two desks and pedal to empty air, so we're going to need an appropriate bike. Is it small enough for Makina to use as well?
はい、ミニベロと呼ばれる小径車なので、マキちゃんでも大丈夫かと。折りたたみもできて、とっても可愛らしい自転車なので、きっとマキちゃんにお似合いです。
ああ、あれな、メイド服にセットでついてきたやつな。
A maid uniform and bike set?
はい、なんでもパラシュート降下時に胸の前に爆体で固定して使用するそうで、敵地での偵察任務において抜群の機動力を発揮することができるとの触れ込みです。
Okay, is this designer a little off in the head or something? Just what kind of hellish environments are these maids supposed to be working in?
風見さんは前時代的です。メイドが給仕だけしていればいい時代はとっくに終わったんですよ。
As far as I knew, we hadn't yet reached the age in which maids are expected to suppress insurgents or perform soul recon missions behind enemy lines. Did something happen in Japan while I was away? Well, whatever. In any case, Makina, let's get you started on some heroic exercise with the bike.
自転車乗ったことない。
Say what?
だから私自転車に乗ったことないのよさ。運転手さんいたし、車があったから乗る必要とかなかったし、誰も乗り方教えてくれなかったしな。
I see. It's extremely easy to forget when you're looking at this stumpy little dough face, but come to think of it, Makina's technically a little miss. Not really that surprising that she wasn't biking around all over the place. Guess we'll have to start with teaching you to ride then. As I massage the corners of my eyes, Makina thrusts her right hand into the air.
ま、気長に行こうぜ。
Yeah, there's not exactly any other choice.
自転車に乗れるようになったら、次はパラシュート降下ですね。
Okay, why not? Somehow, I don't think she'll be needing that particular skill. I may have become Makina's father, but that doesn't mean much of anything has changed. The one noticeable difference is that she's now calling me Papa. A little embarrassing on the receiving end, but that's nothing new. Oni-chan felt just as ticklish. That same afternoon, JB gave me a call on my cell. It was a very brief conversation, just told me she delivered all the materials she could on Grisaia Makina to the Academy administration. In other words, if you want to know that badly, go ask Chizuru. Chizuru. Yeah. Accordingly, I'm currently making my way to the principal's office. The sparkling floor of the hallway seems to have been thoroughly waxed recently, as every step I take produces a loud squeak. A modern take on the Nightingale floor, perhaps? What a reprehensible woman. Chizuru, you in here?
ちょっと愛人のアパートじゃないんだから、自分の部屋みたいに堂々と入ってこないでくれる？ノックをしなさいと何度言えば。
What difference does it make? Hurry up and take a shower. I'll be waiting.
あのね
Just a joke. You already know why I'm here, right?
そうやって大人の女をおもちゃにしているといつか罰が当たるわよ。
Am I? Well, feel free to elaborate on this theory next time I take you out to dinner.
食事に誘う気なんてないくせに。
It was an indirect way of saying I don't want to hear it. Too subtle for you?
本当に嫌な子ね。
JB got in touch, didn't she? Let me see the documents about Makina.
嫌です。
That won't do. How can I get you to show them to me?
あなたの私に対するこれまでの雑な扱いを謝罪して今後はちゃんと先生の言うことを聞きますって言うなら見せてあげます。
That's an abuse of authority, Chizuru.
そうですとも職権でも何でも乱用しますよ。私だっていい加減頭にきてるんですからね。
I see. Ends justify the means. In that case, I guess I'll have to use every card I've got as well. That alright with you?
何をする気？
My master once beat a certain technique into me, a method guaranteed to make even the most stubborn woman spill her guts. It's a lengthy process and frankly something of a pain to execute, but it seems I have no choice.
ちょっと待って。はい、質問です。
Go ahead.
それはエロスと何か関係が？
Tricky question. Interpretations tend to very widely depending on personal proclivities. Come to think of it, back in the old days, I once made JB apologize to me in tears using the method in question. She's never mentioned it. Huh?
確かあの子が甘い声を出しながら無茶なお願いをしてきたら走って逃げろとだけ言われた覚えが。
I feel a lot to say this myself, but that would probably be wise. If you're going to run, kick off those shoes first. With heels like those, I'll catch you so quickly it won't even be any fun.
痛いことしないわよね。
Come on, do I look like such a cruel man? If anything, in a few hours you'll have a pleasant new perspective on the whole concept of pain. Nothing to worry about.
背筋を這い上がるような不安しか感じられないのはなぜかしら。
What are you going to do, Yuuji? On that note, Chizuru, I've got some good news for you. For a limited time only, we happen to be offering a special sale. Fork over Makina's dossier, and all your worries will disappear. Pretty nice deal, right?
分かったわよ。見せればいいんでしょ。見せれば。今用意するから少し待ってなさい。
You have my sincere gratitude for your time.
資料といっても大したものはないわよ。イリスさんの家は暗い部分が多くて、私だってハルデラさんに依頼してやっと手に入った情報なんだから。
As she speaks, Chizuru presses her thumb against a fingerprint scanner and unlocks a small safe installed in her cabinet.
正解の暗部が深く根付いてる家だけに、ハルデラさんのところでも限られた情報。これで全部。 持ち出しは禁止だから今ここで読んでいって。
The A4-size envelope she hands me has the words, "Removal strictly forbidden," scratched across the front in red pen. I'm not looking for intelligence on the Irisu, you know. I'm only interested in information on the individual Irisu Makina.
イリス・マキナを知るということはイリス家を知るということよ。何せ8年前のイリス家のお家騒動の中核にいたのは彼女なのだから。
Domestic feud?
私も詳しくは知らないし、その資料にも概要程度しか記されてはいないけれど、当時の当主とイリスさんのお父様の間に対立があったのよ。
Well, I suppose that's worth reading.
あなた、本気なの？イリスさんのこと？
What do you mean?
イリスさんの父親になるなんて随分と気楽に引き受けたみたいだけれど、あなたが思っているほど単純じゃないわよ。
Yeah, I think I'm starting to understand that. I've got a vague feeling it's going to be a more troublesome job than I expected. Even so, if Makina needs me, I want to do what I can for her.
後悔するかもしれないわよ。
I'm aware. But when and where it seems necessary, I take action first and sort out the pros and cons later. That's how dogs like us are trained. If you find someone who needs help in a place you're obligated to protect, just do what needs to be done. Simple as that.
無駄に力強いのはアメリカ仕込み？
How rude. I don't remember declaring I am justice incarnate.
あんまりサムおじさんを怒らせない方がいいわよ。親会社なんでしょ。
I hear that corporations where employees don't badmouth the higher-ups tend to go bankrupt in no time.
ああ言えばこういう本当に口の減らない子ね。
I picked up my sharp tongue from the Americans.
まあいいわ。コーヒー入れてきてあげるからゆっくり読みなさい。
I appreciate it. Just as you warned me, the documents inside the envelope can't be called detailed by any stretch of the imagination. The reports mainly focus on the history of the Arisu family, tracing their constantly flourishing enterprises from the pre-war era to today, describing their clan structure and naming the houses considered their closest allies. In particular, the careful analysis of the current major players' thought processes and religious ideologies, with an eye toward the risk they might pose to society, stands out as just the sort of meticulous work I'd expect from JB. Since the woman hates relying on personal impressions or speculation in her reports, it feels as though less reliable rumors have been intentionally omitted. While the information that's here appears to be solid, I can't deny that there isn't very much of it. The directly relevant material begins with the biography of Makina's grandfather, a former bureaucrat in the Ministry of Finance. Apparently he was something of a social climber, joining the family by marrying the daughter of a superior. Makina's own father likewise married into the family and took their name, but the real power in the Arisa clan was in the hands of his wife and mother-in-law. And those women, essentially the shadow leaders of the Arisa enterprises, made use of their enormous influence to enrich their family through arrangements tinted an extremely dark shade of gray. When Makina's father realized that he'd been an unwitting participant in large-scale corruption, he took the Arisa's secret account book and tried to come into contact with Naicho, but
事件に巻き込まれて死亡した。
finishing the sentence as my voice trails off, Chizuru reaches out to offer me a steaming mug of coffee.
その事件というのがイリス・正隆氏の娘イリス・マキナの誘拐事件というわけ。
I see. Accepting the mug from Chizuru, I continued flipping through the documents. A group of criminals who kidnapped Makina off the street on her way back from a language class submitted a ransom demand directly to her father. Just as they instructed, Mr. Masataka headed to the designated spot alone with the money, but was shot to death as he made the handoff.
使用された弾丸は未登録の9ミリ拳銃から発射されたもので、事件発生から8年経った今でも犯人につながる有効な手がかりは得られていない。
Following the murder, Irisu Makina was eventually rescued from the scene after spending 6 days there.
そういうこと。犯人グループに拘束されたまま放置されたイリスさんは6日もの間父親の亡骸と同じ部屋に監禁された結果
What?
救出された時には体力的に限界を迎えていたのはもちろんのこと、精神的にもすっかり失調していたそうよ。
So that's why she was hospitalized.
今のイリスさんに見られる言動の異常はその事件が原因だったと言われているわ。
Oh.
入院前のイリスさんはそれこそ神童と呼ばれるほどの天才児だったという話ね。
I had no idea.
それが事件後は言葉も話せないような状態が2年も続いたそうで、
That this happened to her.
イエスかノーか答えられるようになるのにさらに1年、自分の考えを言葉にできるようになるまで2年。人間らしい感情が戻るのに1年。今のように話せるようになったのもここ数年のことのようね。
I feel like this would drive a lot of people insane. I see. Shutting the manila folder, I slip it back into the envelope and return it to Chizuru.
もういいの？
Yeah, I have got the general idea and no need to keep going.
もう見たくない？
What's that supposed to mean?
イリスさんの過去はあなたの過去にも通じる部分があるでしょう。だから辛い過去を思い出すんじゃないかって。ごめんなさい。
Is that the reason you were so reluctant to show me this?
そうね。できればそういう過去はあまり思い出してほしくはないわね。
Denying the past doesn't change who you are today, and thanks to my master, I'm still standing.
ごめんね。変なこと聞くけど、生きていてよかったってそう思えることがあなたにはあるかしら。
Well, I I've got myself through plenty of situations where death might have been the easier choice. Guess I've been trained well enough to treasure survival for its own sake. Also, I still haven't found the reason I was born, and I haven't even begun to repay the kindness of the woman who saved my life. So in that sense too, I'm glad I haven't ended up dead yet. Sorry for asking the unreasonable. I drained the coffee Chooser brewed for me to the dregs in a single gulp, then placed the empty cup on her desk. Kind of a shame, though. You went out of your way to show me the dossier, but there was only one piece of information in the whole thing beyond what I'd already expected. I'm a little surprised that Makina has a little sister. I was positive that girl was an only child.
妹さんといっても父親が違うらしいし、姉妹的な感覚はあまりないのかもしれないわね。
Well, before that, the idea of Makina as a big sister just seems wrong somehow.
確かに。
After thanking the principal for the information and her coffee, I promptly leave the office. As I stroll slowly down the hallway toward our classroom, I reconsider that intelligence once more. Well, I see Makina differently now. And then the information directly concerning Makina herself accounted for maybe a 15th of the total at best. In childhood, she was apparently so talented as to earn the label of prodigy. Hard to believe when looking at the airhead doofus we know today. But when you give the matter careful thought, some faint remnants of that brilliance have been in evidence every once in a while. From a very young age, Makina was raised reverently as a child genius, but most of her family was only really interested in converting that talent into hard cash. Same story everywhere you look, I guess. In a house filled with people who viewed her as nothing more than a tool, Makina's one and only true ally was her father. Irisu Masutaka was an up-and-coming future elite who'd earned superb grades at a top-flight national university, but unfortunately happened to suffer from a distinctly timid and unambitious personality. And ever since meeting Makina's mother in his school days, she'd apparently exercised an absolutely dominating influence over him. Given how faint of heart the man was by nature, it's easy to imagine how anguished and torn he must have been when he discovered his family's deep involvement in large-scale corruption. In the end, he must have decided to live honestly for Makina's sake, even if it meant betraying the rest of his new family. But that was a mistake. Far too many important people would have found themselves in a seriously disadvantageous position if their Irisu clan's records were to be made public. Most likely, the for-profit kidnapping was a ruse devised by his own family, using his daughter as bait, only to kill him in front of her eyes. A clueless bystander in all this, Makina was left tied up in her prison for 6 days with her father's rotting corpse. Hardly surprising that her mind would be deeply damaged. I can't speculate on why they chose to sacrifice the main family's eldest daughter, but after the incident, Makina was removed from her natural position as the future leader of the clan. On paper, she's undergoing continuing medical care for an undisclosed illness, but in reality, she's been effectively disowned. Her younger sister's been giving her place as the family's heiress. Her beloved father, the only ally she had in the world, died before her eyes, and then she was thrown out of her house as an unwanted child. Pretty horrible luck all around. That said, I'm not about to let myself pity the girl. To be perfectly honest, this all sounds like a massive pain. On a purely practical level, it'd probably be wisest not to get too deeply involved. But running away at this point would be far too irresponsible. Misfortune isn't so unusual. I had my share. The world's got quite a few people who didn't grow up under pleasant circumstances in it. But I was lucky enough to eventually meet my master, a person who decisively changed my life for the better. Her help became a huge turning point for me. If someone were to ask me now how I feel about my life, I can probably answer, I'm happy enough in all sincerity. Staying alive is a good thing in itself. As long as you keep going, someday you'll find happiness. Someday you'll become useful to someone. The day will come when you earn someone's gratitude. That's why I'm still going. It was my master that gave me the strength of will to believe those things. I close my eyes, inhale deeply, and ask myself the crucial question once more. Can I really do something for Makina like my master did for me? I looked at those documents in an attempt to understand the things I wanted to protect, but I was also slightly uneasy that knowing the truth might complicate or weaken my determination. Unfounded worries. I'm not going to give an inch. Not 1 inch. Maybe the real reason I looked over that dossier was to confirm my confidence in myself. There's no problem. Kazami Yuuji can't do everything well, but there's nothing he can't do at all. And if I'm not good at something, I can just take the time to improve. I'm not half-at that sort of sober effort. Finally reaching this conclusion, I realized that I'd been standing still in the hallway for some time, lost in thought. I glanced at the watch on my wrist. The time's 16:57. When 5 in the afternoon approaches, I still can't help thinking, which direction was the flag again? Old habits really do die hard. I casually look out the window with a wry smile on my face, only to find my classmates approaching the school gate with hose and small shovels in their hands. Right, it was gardening class. By nurturing something, you gain confidence in yourself. Taking on a moderate responsibility that leads to visible fruits of your labor helps encourage independence. Like fruits of Grisaia? On top of which, you're making a useful contribution to society. That's the general idea behind the horticulture lessons at Miyama Academy. Of course, we're raising broadly competent individuals with exposure to everything from information technology to agriculture is also a nice line for the brochures. But if you look at it a little differently, this school is sort of like a barbecue joint that also offers sushi and ramen. Feels vaguely shady somehow. They've already finished up their lesson at the farm we borrow for the purpose, and all that's left now is putting away the tools. A little strange for me to join in this late in the game. Still, I make my way toward the front entrance. Well then, learning more about Makina. Hey, Makina, just you?
Oh, Papa, どこ行ってたのよさ?
I had a minor errand to take care of. I went to see Chizuru.
ああ、そうかよ。まあ、あれな。たまにはいろんなもん突っ込んでやんないと、地図の下水管も詰まっちまうしな。ご苦労さんなのよさ。
You're as foul mouthed as a marine, I swear. Amane wouldn't be pleased to hear you talking like that, you know. Where is she anyway? Makina points behind her, indicating a red tractor that's making its way toward a storage building on the edge of the school grounds. A white towel rolled around her neck and a big straw hat on her head. Amane laughs merrily in the driver's seat and smoothly shifts gears from tortoise to hare. Oh, I did not know I wanted Amane driving a tractor. That sort of thing really suits her, doesn't it? So what happened to the others? What's with that girl's pathological bad luck? Must have been a real monster in her past life. Well, whatever. Where's Sachi? Sachi, her back turned to us, seems to be vigorously washing her hands in a nearby water fountain in maid uniform, as always. Well, then. What? What now? The girl obstinately continues scrubbing away at her hands, quietly mumbling lines that wouldn't be out of place in some low-budget horror movie. Can't deny it's a vaguely blood-curdling little scene. For some reason, just listening to her voice makes it sound weirdly sexual in a way. Maybe I'm just a little too sensitive. Well, we were just wondering why you were washing your hands so frantically, I guess. I see. Sachi holds out her hands to demonstrate. There's still a faint scent reminiscent of burned lumber lingering on her skin. Sachi, my friend, feel free to flip out. Indeed, a physical maid would definitely be nicer to have around the place. It's up to her, really. She can do whatever she wants. Seriously? Do you even know what you're saying? Shaking my head as Makina cackles innocently, I happen to glance down and notice that she's got a single plant in a plain clay pot sitting at her feet. What's that thing?
リンゴ。
ゴリラ。
Trumpet. Wait, we're replaying the word chain game? I would think not.
今日ね、先生にリンゴの苗をもらったのよ。だから植えてみたのよさ。
An apple seedling, huh? Isn't raising an apple tree actually pretty difficult?
確かに簡単ではないようですけれど、マキちゃんが植えたものは単木で受粉が可能な品種だそうで、
Oh man, we're finally talking about fruits after I've done 27 episodes now. 27 parts. We're finally talking about fruits.
そのまま食ってよし、ジャムにしてよし、
Yay.
パイのフィリングにしてよし。想像すると笑いが止まらないのよさ。実がなったらパパにも食べさせてあげるね。
Great. Learning more about Makina. That was very interesting. When I first met her, she's kind of different. I didn't exactly think she was stupid. Just different. Interesting. She's more interesting than I first thought she was, for sure. Bye!